Just recently, John Powell was named the president and CEO of the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition. Today, I talk one-on-one with him about his new position and what's new for this year's festival for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. John Powell, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
It's great to be here. Great to be here in person with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Obviously, you have a new title here.
I do. I'm at the beginning of this fiscal year, I was named president and CEO of the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition.
Where are you emotionally with that?
I'm in a good place. You know, I think from a day-to-day standpoint, what I do at SEWE, what I offer at SEWE has not really changed. You know, I was executive director for over 10 years, and this will be my 18th SEWE. So, you know, my knowledge of the event and of the people and of the city is pretty extensive, and the board put their trust in me, and it's been a great experience so far.
So, you talk about the board. What got you from executive director to now being president and CEO?
Well, I think that the experience that I was talking about, the fact that I've been with the event so long, that my role as executive director really provided me with the day-to-day experience to move into this position, which again doesn't drastically change what I was doing before. You know, I've had this conversation with several people recently. A lot of the major festivals have gone through a transition in the last several years, and they're all great, and they haven't really missed a beat. And several of those festivals, you know, Bridge Run and most recently Wine and Food, promoted from the current team. You know, and again, it goes to that experience that they have.
So, what is the biggest difference from, you know, obviously 17 years ago to right now when you think of yourself in this position? Not obviously you weren't the executive director at the time, but being with the SEWE.
Well, I think, you know, that knowledge, that sort of macro knowledge, and the relationships. You know, what benefits the organization, what benefits a partner, what benefits the city, and it's again, it's very nuanced. You have to be careful not to step on toes. You know, a decision that may look like it benefits one supporter of SEWE may hurt another. So every day is just trying to keep those things in line and make sure that everybody's happy, or at least the best we can make it.
What is benefiting SEWE right now, John?
Well, certainly last year SEWE was one of the first events that was back in person, and I think there's still a great demand for that. One of the things that always benefits SEWE is that we live and breathe in Charleston. I mean, the popularity of our event has a lot to do with the city. The growth of the organization has mirrored that of Charleston as well. And we've had some extraordinary corporate partners that have been with us for 20 plus years, and we add new partners every year. So, and then at the end of it, the hospitality community in Charleston is, you know, again, it's why these other festivals and SEWE can go through transitions and can face crises and just pop right back out, because the network of people that helps to facilitate a show of this magnitude is extraordinary. So a lot of things is the answer.
How was SEWE able to face those dilemmas in 2020, 2021 and still pop back out in 2022, 2023?
That's a good question. Well, I think, you know, we were able to have a physical event in 2020. We were one of the last major events. So we were fortunate there. You know, in 2021, we figured out a way to navigate with some, you know, online resources. You know, art sales seem to be popular during the year. We went through some staffing changes, and then 2022, there was so much pent-up demand, and seemed to be plenty of sponsorship dollars and people that wanted to buy tickets, that we were able to come through it. And our board had gone through, you know, extensive planning to try to plan for, you know, what would happen for a rainy day, and while that thought of maybe like an earthquake or a hurricane, as we've experienced before, and those sorts of natural disasters, you know, a pandemic wasn't one of them, but either way, we came through very strong.
What's the demand now for SEWE?
Right now, it looks very good. We're tracking ahead of where we were last year, which presents great benefit, great challenges. You know, the peninsula is finite in its space, so are our exhibit sites, and so making sure we have a good customer experience and you know, bring people to Charleston is part of our mission. But you know, at some point there's going to be too many, so that's one of our challenges.
What are the other challenges, John?
You know, everything's more expensive. If you think about the labor issues that face all businesses and the number of vendors that we have, security, rental companies, moving companies, our own staffing, each hotel, each exhibit site, the pressure we put on the city. There are a lot of challenges, big and small, but a lot of them are the same that any business faces in this current climate. And we look ahead. Are we going to see any drop off in the economy? Right now, it looks like things are still really strong. The ticket demand has been great. Our VIP packages sold out. Our corporate partnerships sold out. We're at max capacity.
When did you reach that capacity?
With corporate partners before the new year, and with VIPs before the new year. So it's a great position for us to be in. At the same time, a challenge is, to that point, is we want SEWE to be accessible for all. And while a waiting list is great, we want to have new people. We want to have new art buyers. We want people to be able to experience the VIP program or get new businesses involved. So there's a challenge there too.
Who's on the waiting list right now
for VIP packages? There's several hundred people, and so if you were to go and try to buy a VIP package now, your only option is to get on a waiting list.
Wow. And typically, how long somebody has to wait on that to get off?
Well, it really just depends. I mean, and this is a recent thing for SEWE last couple of years to have a waiting list that's that extensive. Again, so there's always going to be some natural attrition, but SEWE attendees are extremely loyal. So if they come one year, they come all, oftentimes. So we try to balance it.
What else are you trying to balance when trying to have that ultimate customer experience?
I think really you can focus on the crowding aspect. How do we, if there are a lot of people in an exhibit site, what's too many? And oftentimes for a partner or an exhibitor who's selling an individual craft or product, it's great, line out the door. But if you're a customer, if you're an attendee of SEWE, you want to have space to move around. You want to be able to grab a Coca-Cola or a beer when you get a chance. So that's the main challenge. We don't ever want to cap tickets, but you never know how the event must evolve, in a city that's far busier than it used to be.
How do you offer new events while trying to evolve?
Well, I think we've done a really good job of keeping our current template, meaning our list of exhibit sites. We work incredibly closely with the city, with places like Marion Square, Burbank Park. The Gilliard Center has been a fantastic partner, especially, with, it's not quite as new, but newly renovated facility. And the new ownership at Charleston Place Hotel, which is really the core of what we do, has been incredibly easy to work with. Their goals are the same as ours, and we respect tremendously what they're going to do with that hotel and how it's going to affect, I think, great change down to this area of downtown.
So you talked about the city earlier, and obviously you all have to put pressure on the city. What are those other emerging pressures that you see coming forth?
Well, when I say pressure on the city, we've got great relationships, and it starts with the Office of Special Events, the police, fire, EMT, the mayor's office, the council are extremely responsive if we have an issue. So I think I got tailed off there. I think that those relationships are extremely important to us.
Yes, sir. And you also talk about labor issues. That's been going on a lot in the hospitality field. How is that trickling down to SEWE, and how do you all juggle that?
It's those individual vendors. So we work with several different security companies, and if they have trouble finding the slots to fill that we need with overnight security and that sort of thing, at some point they say we can't fill it, and so that leaves us in a bind. And as I'm sure you're aware, the cost of labor has gone up, and that trickles to SEWE quite quickly. So what else is trickling down to SEWE as you know it? What are you trending? What are you looking at as far as trends? Well, we look at, one of the main things we look at, because it's the core of our event, is art sales, and how art sales have changed over the years in general, and then the different trends we saw during the pandemic. People were sitting inside their homes, they were looking at their walls, and they were changing out artwork. Or when the economy came roaring back, new houses were being built, people were buying artwork for that. And then that slowed down a little bit over the last year, but it still seems that many of our artists are doing well. And that's just one aspect. And then like I mentioned, the corporate sponsorships seem to be doing well, and people have seem to be able to invest in our individual benefactor packages.
Right.
So, as long as we don't see too much movement on any of those fronts, we think that we're in a good position. But we also want to be very careful to keep SEWE accessible and not increase prices any more than necessary to make sure that we put on a quality event and put ourselves on a path to be sustainable going forward.
So what is that sustainability plan for you all?
Well, I think it's preparing for the worst, and like a year where we don't have a show, but also continuing to invest in the show and respect the dollars that we're entrusted with from partners, from individuals, and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to put wildlife art on a platform. We're going to put conservation on a platform. We're going to provide exceptional entertainment, some that come with a price tag, some are free and open to the public. We're going to send artists into schools. We're going to support conservation organizations going into schools, and continue to fulfill our mission that is both art-based and conservation-based, and more than it ever has been, the support of the economy here in Charleston, especially in the hospitality community.
So let me ask you this, John. This might be a little complicated question that is, but what is the state of conservation and wildlife art as you see it?
Well, in the context of SEWE, they're intertwined in a lot of ways. I would say that's almost the art piece. I think the current state of wildlife art is probably strong. You always wonder if what the emerging artists are going to look like. You want to see young artists. You want to see young, good artists that'll come and participate and be part of the show for many years. We have a lot of great artists that are sort of aging out. They don't paint as much as they used to. Right. They don't travel as much as they used to. And again, while it's sad to see some of them go, you hope that void is met by emerging artists. In conservation, I think that's a question for any individual. We don't necessarily have a stance as far as SEWE, other than we're going to give everything we can to provide a platform for organizations that are both national down to the local level, and if we can inspire kids through wildlife presentations, and programming and movies and the things that we're doing this year, that's going to be great.
So what has been SEWE's approach to actually enhancing and diversifying your program?
Well, sorry, yeah, and I should have answered this better earlier. I think we try to keep the same template, and we had some thoughts of maybe adding an exhibit site this year, but with everything going on, we waited. So we try to have new entertainment. A lot of it's educational entertainment. We try to have new exhibitors. So within that template, we'll have new artists, new exhibitors. Take the stage at the Gilliard, for example. We'll add some new programming there. The arena at Marion Square, we'll add some things there, and same with Brittle Bank. So keep it so that people are familiar with it. They know they're going to see the spaces and some of the same faces that they love.
Yes.
But each year, we try to add a little something new.
Yes, sir. And sorry about the delay there.
That's fine. We're sitting almost on the street here.
But I know from the past I spoke with you, you all have, I hope this is right, 5 different sites?
Correct.
Okay. So which one of those five sites will be standard and which ones are actually new?
So we're expanding a bit at the Marriott Hotel. And the Charleston Marriott and Brittle Bank almost are like one big exhibit site. And so you have Brittle Bank, and you have the Marriott, and you have Gilliard, Marion Square, and then Charleston Place Hotel, which is, again, sort of the core of what we do with wildlife art.
So, and you talked earlier about obviously the economic impact. I know that you all taken at least you contribute $35 million to the economic impact controls.
And we have a study coming this year, and I hope that number will reflect a lot higher. Yeah.
Wow. So what event generates the most money for your event?
It's really, we have a lot of different sources of revenue. Ticket sales being an important piece of that, art sales being an important piece of that. And we are always seeking funding from public and private partners. So literally from everybody that's involved in the show.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And you talked earlier about corporate sponsorships. How much has that gone up by in the past 2 years?
I don't want to get into specifics, but it's significant. And we want to balance the participation with corporate partners, benefactors, and our individual attendees. And the great thing about our corporate partners is those relationships are no different than they are with other people work. They're very personalized. We know who they are. We want to meet their needs, whether that's philanthropic, entertainment, marketing, etc.
And What else needs do you want to meet when it comes to the corporate sponsorships?
Well, we just want. I mean, we want it. We want SEWE to continue. If SEWE continues to be a great entertainment platform for them, and each partner has different needs.
Yes.
Some they want to see their employees be able to come out and enjoy the show. Others are entertaining. Others really want to make sure that their corporate dollars that need to be spent on sponsorship or for philanthropic needs go to an organization that supports the arts and conservation. So everybody's a little bit different.
And I know in the past, John, on Quintin's Close-Up, you told me, listen, and you were very honest about it. You said, SEWE is becoming more difficult to host when you think of resources and money and stuff like that. Where are you with that right now?
I mean, I think we've been in flex where we have to. Like I said, I mean, Charleston's gotten a little bit faster.
Yeah.
It's gotten a little bit bigger. But, we feel as though we're an important part of the city, and we love the city, and so we try to grow with it. But everything gets more expensive, right? And so you figure out a way. And that'll force some change in the show, and change is good. We try to, again, we want to keep our base when it comes to people and our sites, but as the city evolves, as the wildlife art evolves, we will too.
And this is a redundant question, but how do you grow with smart growth?
Well, here's the answers. We don't always know. There have been opportunities to go over the bridge. We get great support from the town of Mount Pleasant, along with Charleston, and there are opportunities there, and there are some events that are hosted over there, some special events from conservation partners. But sometimes growing in numbers isn't the best. Maybe we just need to keep trying to increase our quality, do our best to do that, and again, try not to leave anybody out of the show, but create some more space. And we're always looking at it. We're going to take a look this year at where we end up, because Marion Square we always keep free and open to the public, so we can't control a lot of the attendance there, and we want it to be because it's very educational. Sure. There's a lot of great stuff down there. So we'll take stock of where we were with tickets with attendees this year and say, hey, is this too much? And if it is, we'll figure out where we go from there.
Did COVID lessen your quality or enhanced it?
I think if anything, it enhanced it if it had an effect. I think we were overwhelmed with the response last year in a positive way. People and SEWE goers are great, happy people to begin with, if you want to stereotype it. And so, the crowds coming out of the gate they seemed to be fine with it. And a lot of our quality comes from our corporate partners, our exhibitors and artists. They say, you build this great show, and we do. We try to build the foundation for it. But a lot of the color, a lot of the things that you see at SEWE are brought in by the people that participate and sell their goods and wares or artwork.
So how much did SEWE grow in the number of participants and exhibitors over the past 2 years?
Exhibitors can fluctuate. Again, if we want to create some more green space at Brittle Bank, maybe we'll try to cut down on the number of exhibitors. But a facility like the Gilliard Center or the Charleston Place, it goes up and down just a little bit every year, as does attendance. If we have cold, windy weather, you're going to see a little bit of a dip. If it's 3 beautiful days outside, you're going to see an uptick because people are sitting around saying, hey, let's go to a lot of that has to do with outdoor parks.
Yes.
Attendance at the indoor facilities typically remains steady.
So, John, let me ask you an off-base question. How do you build your capacity?
Well, that goes into, a previous question. Do we add another exhibit site, which we thought about doing this year? And when you do that, well, A, we have to make sure we can pay for it, and B, how much extra stress does that put on the city? If we're bringing in more people, or are we just dispersing that crowd that we already have? So we look through that, and if we feel like we can do that in 2024, add a new site that'll take a little pressure off some of the other, and that'll enhance the event and continue to fulfill our mission, we'll do that.
So when you look around the peninsula, what site would be ideal for that?
Well, I mean, every bit of green space we could get our hands on. But some of the parks and some of the green space that the city has invested, tremendous amount of money to, aren't conducive. We put a lot of wear and tear on the facilities that we use. So, there are some green spaces that we haven't tapped into. There are some private public partners that have offered their space. We've always, had discussions with College of Charleston. The Citadel has been more than gracious, because they know that we're on that side of the peninsula.
Right.
And, we have friends that are in the same types of businesses, entertainment and events. So we look at every opportunity, but it has to make sense and, within a bus route and within, somewhat close proximity to at least another one of the exhibit sites.
Oh, yes. So how have you actually embraced new and emerging technologies to enhance the SEWE experience for guests?
Well, that's an interesting question. We've got somewhat of a young team here that have helped push that a little bit. But we have the full demographic at SEWE. I remember making a note several years ago that my grandmother was here, and so was one of her great grandchildren. So the age range is pretty significant. And so, how long do we keep a paper directory, or brochure, which I find very handy.
Yes.
But maybe the younger generation doesn't need it. They're going to be on their mobiles. It's easy just to update, schedules. It's for us to ticket people in.
Right.
So we're somewhere in between, old school, new school. We still have our hang tag tickets,
Sure.
or a badge, or a badge. And one of those gets you into all the exhibit sites, and it's one of the great things about SEWE, but it also makes it hard to control. So if we have 15,000 people downtown during the day, are all of them going to go to the outdoor parks because it's pretty outside, or are they all going to go inside? So those are some of the challenges we face with that too.
And what are those other challenges do you face that you're looking at right now too?
Gosh, I've already gotten anxiety talking about the ones we've already covered. No, little things. I mean, transportation.
Oh, yeah.
We could add more buses, but with more traffic downtown, doesn't really get you there any faster. If the increased crowds, you get increased security, so you're increasing expense at the same time. So, it's all those things we discussed, and how do you keep staff engaged? How do you keep them inspired when you want to keep some of the old school, and they bring you new school ideas? We spend a far more time than you think during the early part of the year wrapping up a show, beginning to plan, and then you play a little bit game of hurry up and wait because you throw out these ideas to partners, but they're not quite ready to think about February a year from now.
Yeah.
So we don't even know what some of the challenges are that we'll face in 2024. I think some of that will come with our ticketing system, and just the questions you asked. What is the state of wildlife art? What will that look like a year from now? And I hope it's strong.
And what are those new school ideas that your staff is bringing to you that you want to implement this year?
Well, I mean, one of the first things we've done is music is a natural progression for SEWE. So Steep Canyon Rangers is playing Thursday night at SEWE, and that's in partnership with the Gilliard. So perfect example of here we're trying something new. We've got a trusted partner like the Gilliard Center who can facilitate a concert of that size, and I have no doubt that'll be a great success. So what can we do next year to build off that? Can we add some more concerts? Can we bring in a little bit more of the music crowd? And some of that crowd may also be into wildlife art, and conservation, that sort of thing. So slowly try to bring in some of the new, some new components to the show without having so much programming that an office with a staff of just six people can also manage it, during the showtime.
I didn't know you had 6 people. Wow.
Well, and it's people ask how we do it, and it's simple, and it's really simple. We have so much temporary staff that returns, and we use so many vendors that are family. They love SEWE. They work 24 hours a day. During the week of SEWE, and another point to the transition at other major festivals over the last several years, the hospitality community. The support that we get there, that goes all the way up. They can help manage, right? And they jump in and do their part. So it's an army, certainly. And our goal is to get us to the finish line, and then that group helps us get all the way there.
So how many vendors do you have total right now?
So off the cuff, I think we probably have 350 or so exhibitors, and then another 100 artists.
Jeez.
And that fluctuates because some of the vendors are sponsors,
Yes,
and some of the exhibitors are multiple companies. It's not a hard count, but that's a good number for us.
Oh yes. And when you look at 2024, what do you see coming forth with that?
We learn our lessons during the year, right? So even during the planning process, here we are in January, so we're not that far out from SEWE, and what are we ahead in now? And where you can say that we did a great job there, and where are we behind? And so from internal standpoint, we know what those are. Now, if the concert's successful, then we're going to look at more music. If certain artists are successful, we'll say, well, is that because of the individual artists and their medium, or is that certain certain style. We'll take a look at those things. Which exhibitors were successful? Where did we do well with getting the crowds in and out? Where did we do poorly? I mean, that's how we look at the evolution of the show and our successes.
So going back obviously to 2022, what did you all get right and what did you all get wrong?
I think the major thing we got wrong was just maybe not anticipating that the response would be that big. We knew we were going to have more people than we did in 2020. I think what we did right is we gave everything we had, and we gave a product that was what people expected. The outpouring of congratulations and a thank you, not only from attendees but from the hospitality community. Because when we made the decision to host 2022, we had to make that in the fall, really, of 2021, when we were facing Omicron and some of these other things. And what we did as an organization, with the full support of our board, said, you know what, we're going to put our heads down and go for this thing. And fortunately, the tide shifted and people were able to come out, and people were so happy to be out and about. So we did that one right. We said, we do this for the community, we do this for all the people that are involved, and we're gonna go for it.
So let's fast forward. Who, what, when, where, and how for this year's festival?
And again, we're going to have the same template, the same great exhibit site that you can expect. We have a great featured artist. His name's Ryan Kirby, and his pheasants that you can see on billboards and on all our print material are sort of the representative of the show this year. There's a handful of new artists, new exhibitors. We have new programming at the Gill Yard. We have a full day, and there's programming all day there. We've added some dog events at Marion Square, to complement those that are already at Brittlebank.
Yeah.
And we've been conscious of trying to create some more green space so that if we do see large crowds again this year, outside of what we know or from our ticket sales, then we can compensate for that.
So you talk a lot about green space. So how green will you all go next year?
Well, if going green from a cycling standpoint and that sort of thing, we're always trying to be as green as possible. And if we're talking about accessing more green space, I don't know the answer to that yet. We've got a couple of options on the table, and again, we try not to be impulsive or reactive. The growth I don't necessarily want to call it expansion, but the changes, we want them to be well thought out, and not make a leap where we have an exhibit site that maybe just doesn't hit right off the bat. It took a little while for Brittlebank to become popular, and now it's one of our most popular sites, and those are the pieces that we put together slowly over the years. Green on a couple of different levels.
And what new sites are becoming quickly a popular site for you all?
Well, I think the ones we've had so far, or the ones we've mentioned so far, we've had for a while, but the Marriott across the street from Brittlebank, we're expanding into their upstairs ballroom. Okay. So we think that'll take a little bit of pressure off Brittlebank, allow us to have some exhibitors indoors in case there's inclement weather. And the Marriott's been a great partner, so it lets us work with them a little bit more.
Yes, indeed. Well, John Powell with Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin. It's great to see you.
Likewise.